Thank you for joining today's session. We will be getting started shortly. We do have a lot of folks signed up for today's session, and we want to give everyone a moment to log on and get connected so that we can dive into today's session. I do want to thank you all for joining us today. I am Jasmine Garrett here with the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. Today's session is an informational overview of the federal and programmatic requirements for grantees of Phase 1 of the Child Care Facilities Improvement Program. A quick housekeeping note, we do suspect that many questions will be answered in today's presentation. However, you are able to write in questions at any point during the presentation using Zoom's Q&A feature. It is one of your Zoom command options and will allow us to make sure we are able to get back to you and let others see these questions and answers as well. Today's session is being recorded and will be posted on our NJEDA and YouTube pages. The slides and other resources will also be available in the next few days. Now, to get us started with the presentation, I will shift things over to NJEDA's Chief Economic Security Officer, Tara Colton. Tara?
Thanks, Jasmine. Good morning, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be with you today. Again, I'm Tara Colton. I'm the Chief Economic Security Officer at NJEDA and have the honor of helping to lead the team that has designed and is rolling out this program. I'm also a mother of two who have been in home-based care, center-based care, public school aftercare, and so I certainly understand at a personal level the importance of childcare, but also like to think that we bring a message to the world about the importance of childcare as economic infrastructure. Governor Murphy has talked many times about how childcare is a cold-blooded economic development strategy, and I like to think that our team is cold-blooded and warm-hearted at the same time. And I wanted to just take a moment to thank the incredible team at the EDA, led by Alex Himmel, who you're going to be hearing from in a moment. But I also want to thank and express immense gratitude to Erica, Harleni, Abubakar, Rebecca, Damaris, Parishi, Charlie, Danny, Liam, and so many more at EDA who have made this their passion. And it's really striking that the state's economic development agency has a team dedicated to childcare. I also just wanted to say what a privilege it's been to get to review the materials that you all have shared. I personally approve every single application, so I have seen pictures and read narratives of all of your locations, but have also had the honor and real joy of visiting a number of the locations that have either completed their projects or are near completion. Actually was with Alex at one yesterday, and every time the joy of the children, the pride and gratitude of the staff and the educators is so profound, but also the long-term economic opportunity that this provides. So we're just really grateful to be working with all of you. Alex is going to be getting into a lot of details about what comes next. What I would just leave you with as some sort of framing is to recognize and celebrate how much of a real generational investment we are making in all of your businesses and your organizations. We have about 600 childcare centers that have received funding through this program, and all told, the NJEDA is dedicating $143 million to childcare facility improvements. And if you look back to just 4 or 5 years ago, or before Governor Murphy took office, the NJEDA was dedicating $0 to childcare facility improvements. So when you look at the extraordinary growth that we've experienced, I also just want to emphasize the scale of what we're doing compared to other states. New Jersey, as you all know, is one of the country's smallest states, but we are making, we believe, the third largest investment of any state in the country in childcare infrastructure, after only California and Texas, which are obviously much bigger than us. And so that is a testament to the need, but it's also a testament to the impact that these projects can have. And so we're really excited to continue to see the progress. And now, we're very focused on the implementation, getting the money out the door, making sure that we have everything approved and done and processed in time. But just again, so grateful for all of you. And with that, I will turn it over to our wonderful Director of Childcare, Alex Himmel.
Thanks so much, Tara. Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy that we're all here together. We have a lot of important and critical information to share with you. And I know as a former center director how busy all of your lives are. So thank you so much for making a little time to be here with us. So with that, our agenda for the day is on the screen in front of you. We're going to be talking about federal deadlines, and then we're going to be going through some of the key areas that are part of this program. Sharing some really important reminders for you all in order to help all of us meet the federal deadlines that we're going to be focused on for the next period of time. So just a reminder, Jasmine walked us through this. If you have questions about any of the content that's being delivered today, please use that Q&A feature and we'll be answering as many as we can in real time. If you have a very specific question about your project, we're going to ask you to hold off on that and redirect your question to your GPS, your grantee project specialist. They'll be able to speak to your individual project and give you the information that you're looking for. Next, just a quick reminder about all the resources that we have available for grantees. There is an entire section on our website. The link is here, dedicated to grantees. This is where we post the most up-to-date forms and resources. Just make sure you click on the little V next to Grantee Resources to see the full drop down of what's available to you. We are still getting old versions of forms, which we are no longer going to be able to accept. So please visit our website or speak to your GPS to make sure you have the most current forms that we are using. Old forms, unfortunately, will be sent back and will need to be revised on the new forms from this point forward in order to avoid any confusion. And then the other thing that I want to mention is that all of the questions from today and a lot of the information that's being presented here is going to be turned into what we're calling a grantee FAQ. That was a really valuable resource during the application process. So we want to make something similar available to grantees. We know that there's a lot of information to digest, to remember, and this will be a point of reference for you to hopefully make it a little bit easier about how do you navigate things as they come up. So stay tuned for that in the very near future. Okay, we're going to dive right in. As you all may recollect, the funding for this program are federal dollars from the American Rescue Plan through the state of New Jersey. There are rules around this funding and when they must be expended. So all dollars for this program must be expended by December 31st, 2026, which gives us a bit over a year and a half or so to get a lot of work done for those 600 grantees that Tara was speaking to. This is an incredibly important bit of information. I'm asking grantees to please make a note of the deadlines that are being shared here. We'll get into the details of project extensions, but at some point we will not be able to issue any more extensions. So next spring will be the last of any extensions that will be granted. This next deadline is probably the most critical for you and in turn your contractors to know and understand, which is all construction, regardless of when you start your project, must be completed by September 15th of 2026. So if you have not started your projects yet, please keep this date in mind as you start negotiating with your contractors that timeline for construction. And we'll get a little bit into what does a completed project look like for the purposes of this grant. All of the construction payments must be submitted to the EDA no later than October 1st, 2026. For anybody who's gone through the payment process with us, it does go through rigorous checks and balances, and we want to make sure that we have enough time to do that work and adhere to this deadline of December 26. And then the last deadline for anyone who has FFE as part of their project, those reimbursement requests must be submitted no later than November 15th of 2026. As the grantee, there is an expectation that you are managing your project. And there are a couple key pieces for you all to keep in mind about how to go about managing your process. So the first one is knowing your project specific timelines related to commencement and completion. And those should be looked at with the lens of the deadlines that I just shared with you. There are additional programmatic requirements, what we'll get into in the moment, but as the grantees, you have a responsibility of making sure that you are adhering to the requirements of this grant. And if for some reason you are running into any kinds of challenges or barriers, please communicate those to your GPS and we can help try to troubleshoot and figure out, how do we deal with those barriers or challenges? Which leads to this next suggestion about keeping in regular communication with your GPS as to how things are going. We don't necessarily want to take a no news is good news approach here. We'd rather know that progress is being made and being updated on how close you are to completing all those incredible improvements that you are working on. The other reminder as you work with your contractors is that you are the customer. This is your money, and you are the client here. So you have a responsibility of communicating those to contractors and helping them help you meet the requirements of this program. This is not solely on the EDA to do that. Again, this is your funding and you are ultimately responsible for meeting those requirements. And that is also inclusive of managing your budget and knowing how much money you have, how much has been spent, and being responsible for those funds. So I'm fairly certain that we have a wide variety of grantees like on the spectrum in terms of where they are with their projects. We do have some that are still preparing for their pre-con meetings. So for some of you, this is not applicable anymore. You're past this milestone. But a few reminders to those of you who have not attended a pre-construction meeting yet. The number one thing is construction cannot start until you and your contractors attend this pre-con meeting. Pre-con meetings, grantees need to attend pre-con meetings within 90 days of executing their grant agreement. And during that process, the EDA is collecting certificates of insurance of all of your contractors, as well as contracts that have been drawn up between you and your contractors. You also should know that there are requirements as to what kind of coverage the contractors have as part of their insurance, and particular language and federal requirements that need to be in those contracts. You should have gotten a few communications from us laying out what those requirements are. If you don't have them or you can't find them, please contact your GPS to make sure that you have that information and that you're in turn sharing it with your contractors. The quicker we get those documents updated and corrected, the quicker you can attend a pre-con meeting and the quicker that you can start construction. I know many of you are very anxious to get started. Staying on top of these requirements and making sure you're getting from your contractors what you need quickly only helps to meet the milestone of attending that pre-con meeting. During those first 90 days after you've executed a grant agreement, we do allow for an extension to get your contractor information to us. However, there's some very specific indicators that need to be met in order to be allowed to use this form. So contractors, this extension form can be used if your contractor pulls out of your project during those 90 days. They say that they are unable to do the work, they're not available to do the work anymore, things of that nature. That means you then are going to have to find a new Department of Labor, Public Works contractor, and we know that that can take a little bit of time. So in order to stay compliant with the terms of our grant, you can apply for this 45-day extension to give you a little bit of room and space to find a new contractor, collect all the documents that are required. So if you are outside of the 90 days, there are no extensions regarding finding contractors. Next, we want to talk a little bit about project commencement. The way that the EDA is defining commencement is if a contractor deposit is requested or an FFE disbursement is requested, or you have a shovel in ground, which essentially means construction has begun. You've attended your pre-construction meeting and work is happening at your site. The date of any one of those three things happening now becomes your commencement date. And as outlined in your grant agreement and in all of our materials, projects have to commence within 12 months of your closing date. Your closing date is also the date that you executed your grant agreement. If you are unable to start within that time frame, you will be in default of your grant agreement. There are no extensions to commence your project. That is also related to the federal deadline, and making sure that folks have enough time to start and complete their projects while also helping us to ensure that we're meeting that federal deadline of December 31st, 2026. If at this point you don't have a confirmed or even a tentative start date for your project, we would suggest that you connect with your contractor or contractors, contact them immediately, and start mapping out some time frames for the work to get started. And then that way you have a goal ahead of you, and you can manage your relationship with your contractor because you have that agreed upon date. And again, please keep your GPS informed and updated on the status of your project. If you're running into any challenges, if your contractor is unresponsive, whatever concern that you have, please let us know. And again, we can troubleshoot with you to figure out how do we address whatever's going on. The next section, we want to talk a bit about our project changes and cost overrun. This is something that's happening across many projects, and it's to be expected that projects have small shifts and changes and things that come up, particularly when construction has started. The unexpected suddenly appears from around the corner. We do allow for project changes. And as you all know, you're all eligible for up to 15% of your grant award in cost overruns to pay for those unexpected costs. We have a form that needs to be completed in order to document those requests for both project changes and or cost overruns. You, as the grantee, are responsible for filling out that form. We need very specific information from you about your project, and it's not always information that your contractor has. Can a contractor help you complete portions of the form? Absolutely, 100%. There's a lot of technical terms and things that happen on a project that you would want their insight on. But ultimately, you are responsible for putting in the request to the EDA and explaining to us what it is that you are proposing. The form should also be completed with as much detail as possible so that we understand what's happening at your site and the challenges that you're having or the changes that need to be made. And the forms need to be filled out in its entirety. If they're not detailed enough or all the sections that we need completed aren't, we're going to have to send it back to you, and it's going to delay the process. And I don't think anyone loves that idea. So, and then the form should be submitted using your document upload link. The forms do go through both a approval process with our federal programs team. Those of you who have worked with that team, there are incredible partners who are helping with sort of the oversight of the construction itself and the contractor requirements. And so they go through their process, and then the request comes to us. And then our incredible team, Erica, does the approvals for all of these. If you have any questions about how you should be handling project changes, please contact your GPS. There's a few things I want to a little more detail to get into now. If you are modifying your scope of work, which essentially means, you applied to us and said, I want to do A, B, and C improvements, and you need to change or modify any of those. Again, we need an explanation as to what's going on and why the change is being requested. You're going to need to submit a new itemized quote so that we can ensure what's being proposed is cost reasonable and meets all of the requirements regarding prevailing wage and things of that nature, all things that hopefully sound familiar to you from the application phase. We will also asking for photos to demonstrate the need or the issue that's going on. New improvements, so something that is outside of your original scope of work, what you were approved for, is only for emergencies. So perhaps you have a pipe burst and there was a flood, and all of a sudden your needs have changed significantly. That's an example of what we would see as an emergency, and we would allow a grantee to sort of rethink the work that needs to be happening and the improvements at the facility. If you are proposing something new because you've changed your mind, unfortunately, that is not allowable here. If you've got questions about where your change may fall into one of those categories, please talk to your GPS and they'll be able to help you navigate that. You may also, depending on what the change is, need more time to complete the work. So give that some thought as you're talking about those changes with your contractor, and determine if you may need to request an extension to get the work done. If your request is around repurposing costs, that is allowed under a couple conditions. Number one, you can repurpose FFE to hard costs at any time. If you want to repurpose hard costs to FFE, there's a couple conditions. One is, and the number one is, FFE had to have been part of your original scope of work. So if you were approved for a project that only had construction and no FFE, we will not be able to repurpose those funds to FFE because you had some cost savings. Unfortunately, that's just not going to be allowed. If FFE was part of your original scope of work, and you want to repurpose some funds, we are going to ask you to wait until all of your construction is completed, just to ensure you have all the money that you need to finish construction and nothing unexpected comes up, and then all of a sudden you don't have any money to pay for it anymore. So we may ask you to hold off to do that repurposing until all the construction is completed. The next thing is around cost overrun requests. This is a reminder that the cost overruns is your only contingency. And a reminder that the requirements of this program is that your project is funded 100% using this grant. So you cannot put in your own money to make up the difference, unfortunately. So knowing your balance and your overall budget is going to be critical to make sure that you have the funds needed to complete the project. requests of over 50% of your total cost overruns has to have a really strong justification. And we may ask a series of follow-up questions about your project and some of the decisions that you're making in order to get a full perspective on what's happening. And in some cases, depending on the nature of what's going on, you may be asked to reduce your scope of work in order to manage those additional costs and ensuring that you have enough to pay 100% of the project with these funds. And the last piece is around replacing your contractor. Again, it is allowed. Replacing contractors will put a delay on the work. So we ask folks to think really carefully about if and when they want to change their contractors. If you do, or it's necessary or needed, just a reminder that the contractors must be a Department of Labor, Public Works certified contractor. We've got resources that we can share with you about how to identify a new contractor. And then, like we had to do during your application phase, we'll have to collect a series of documents on those contractors and make sure that they are ultimately eligible to do the work. And your GPS can help you navigate that and make sure all of those checks are done. Okay, moving on to project completion. So the EDA is defining a completed project as to when all construction is completed and, if applicable, all of your FFE has been paid out. Projects have to be completed within 12 months of commencing, unless perhaps you need to request an extension, which we'll get into shortly. And again, a reminder, extensions at some point will no longer be allowable. To process your final construction payment, you all may recall during your pre-con meeting, the EDA retains 10% of all the contractor costs. We then conduct an on-site visit to ensure the work has been completed. So a staff member from our federal program teams comes on site and inspects all the work that's been completed. And once that visit has been done, then we can release that final payment of the 10%. Not to sound like a broken record, but just want to reiterate some of the deadlines again. All construction must be completed by September 15th of 2026. And all FFE requests must be submitted to us by November 15th of 2026. The other thing that I want to highlight for folks is about 60 days or so after your project is completed, you're going to be getting a survey from the EDA. Then we're asking you to complete that survey. It shouldn't take very long, 10 or 15 minutes, but we want to get a sense of the impact that this funding has had on your programs. So we heard a lot of amazing stories in your narratives from your application about the things that you're hoping to accomplish and the problems that you're hoping to solve by using this funding. And so the post survey is a way for us to collect data to say, did those things happen? What was the impact? You said you were going to increase capacity and be able to enroll infants now because you have a sprinkler system. So talk to us about what happened there. We want to hear about the impact it's had on your staff and your families. And And it will allow the EDA to tell the overall story of the impact that this funding has, and how widespread and the incredible impact that it's had on children and families across New Jersey. So please don't ignore that survey. Take the couple minutes to fill it out. We're super appreciative of folks that are doing that. And we are also compiling essentially like a library of before and after photos of each of your projects, which Tara and I have had the pleasure of sharing with our team and other teams within the EDA and with elected officials. And when I tell you that it makes an amazing impact and people are wowed, that's probably an understatement. So thank you for your time to do that once that hits your inbox.
Alex, can I just chime back in on that
Of
and let you maybe
course.
take a breath for a second? Because
Sure.
I just want to emphasize what Alex said and reiterate the showing the impact, talking to us about the on the ground reality of what this means, whether it's improving your Grow NJ Kids rating, being able to enroll more families, feeling like you have better curb appeal, feeling like the children that you're caring for are having a different experience day to day, saving on energy costs, whatever it is. I just want to really emphasize again how important that is. We were visiting a center yesterday and we got the question we get every time we visit a center, which is there more money for this? Will there be another round of this? And at this time, there is not. We have a small program open for home-based family childcare homes, but right now we have no additional funds for additional improvements to childcare centers. We would love for that to change. And by far the most persuasive way to do that is to be able to show the proof of impact from the money the considerable amount of money that we've spent so far. So would really ask you to take that seriously and help us tell your story, because your story is much more powerful than what we can tell conceptually. And I also just want to thank Alex for going through all these details and being a broken record, because we have to be. And we know that some of this is complex and stress inducing, and we are trying our best with the sort of resource constraints that we have to be as responsive as possible. I just also wanted to flag, I saw there was a lot of comments and sort of specific questions. And so we put in the chat for a number of those just to contact us directly. This isn't the venue that we can have to go into detail. I wanted to just say one more thing before I turn it back to Alex, which is there was a comment about having a harder time reaching people by phone. So you heard us say at the beginning, we have 600 grantees. So we have a staff, but it's a lot. That's a lot of people and inquiries to manage. So we just encourage you to also send an email at the same time. It gives us the ability to reroute if there's an inquiry or if someone's out. So just would encourage you to make that kind of a habit. And again, thank you all so much, and I'll turn it back to Alex. We're not done, but I just wanted to chime in and again, let her maybe take a break.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so just a reminder to everyone, for the moment, grantees are eligible for up to 2 3-month extensions to complete their projects. Again, project extensions are not intended for delaying a commencement of your project. This is for, you know, it took us a little bit longer. There was a delay with materials being delivered, things of that nature. But your project has to have been started. Construction needs to be started before we will entertain the idea of approving an extension. And as I said earlier, at some point, there will be no more extensions. So come the spring of 2026, that's just not gonna be an option here. And to sort of piggyback on something that Tara just said, you know, the reason that we're having this conversation now is so that everybody is aware, of course, and we understand expectations, but to do what we can to be proactive about your projects, and not be reactive when there's very little time for us, to have other options. Right now, we have options. And so that's essentially why we wanted to have this webinar, is to make sure that everyone had the information that they needed and could begin to plan accordingly and be proactive about what is the next year and a half going to look like for them, in order to make sure that you're staying compliant with the grant, the requirements of the program, and again, helping us to ensure that we are meeting the federal requirements of this funding. So, so project extensions, again, can be requested if your construction has started. This form should be filled out in detail as to like why you need the extra time, and need to be made and requested in advance of your project completion date. So remember that once you commence a project, you have 12 months to complete it. So before you get to the end of that 12 months, if you just figure out that you need more time, or your contractor explicitly says to you, we're going to need more time, let's get that request into us, so that we can sort of shift that timeline, and it gives everyone a little bit of breathing room to do the important work, which is the construction. Okay, and now moving on to compliance. There are these 4 key areas that I want to talk you through. This is all also outlined in your grant agreement. And non-compliance of any of these will put you and result in an event of default. And you will get a letter from us, and you will have a cure period. And if things are not addressed within that cure period, you know, there are some additional steps that may have to be taken. So again, sharing this so folks can be proactive, they can be aware of what's going on and get ahead of things so that there are not issues in meeting these requirements. So I'm sure at this point you are all very familiar with the tax clearance certificate that we need to have on file here at the EDA. Those certificates are only valid for 180 days. So if during the duration of your project, it expires, we are going to need a new one. We won't be able to approve certain requests if we don't have this document on file. So please stay ahead of this. If you get a notification from your GPS that your certificate is going to expire, please take care of it as quickly as possible and get it to us as quickly as possible. Cross that off your to-do list, and it's one less thing that you have to worry about, and it won't cause any sort of delays in your project. The next item that we may request from you is your certificate of insurance, which also has to be on file for the duration of your project. That being said, the EDA is well aware and participating in lots of conversations around the challenges that some childcare providers are having in relation to their liability insurance. You know, things being canceled on them, rates going up significantly. If you are one of the providers that are facing any of those challenges, please just let your GPS know. We know how difficult it's been over at least the last year or so. And so, but if we know that you're having those challenges, that will be really helpful information for us to know. And if you have any questions about that or are facing any of those challenges, please talk to your GPS. Grow NJ Kids, hopefully everyone is familiar. This is the state's quality rating and improvement system. There is a requirement that all grantees enroll within 12 months of executing their grant agreement in this program. If you finish your project before you enroll in Grow NJ Kids, you still have to enroll in Grow NJ Kids. That's just what's going to happen. We do verify enrollment with the Department of Human Services. So we're checking to make sure enrollment is happening. The other thing that we will share here for anyone who's not enrolled, it takes a bit of time. My understanding is it takes at least a couple weeks. So again, do what you can to be proactive about enrolling. There's information on our website about how to enroll. Your GPS can help you, point you in the right direction. And I will say, just from my past experience before the EDA, I did a lot of work in California around their quality rating and improvement system. And the benefits to participating in a program like this are just incredible. Forget about the fact that you get, free coaching and technical assistance. You and your staff get access to free trainings. And ultimately, when you get rated, there is a financial compensation, and the higher your rating, the more money you get. So it's really a win-win-win here for you to enroll and to participate in the program. I wish when I was a director, I had a program like this to help me. So, and then the last piece of license compliance is around licensing with DCF. Hopefully, you all are well aware that you must maintain your DCF license at the site where the improvements are happening for 4 years following executing your grant agreement. We do verify that on an ongoing basis with DCF. If you are thinking about closing your program, I would very much encourage you to talk to your GPS ahead of any of that happening, and let us know sort of what are the circumstances, and we'll address those on a case-by-case basis if there's anything to be done. Okay, the final section, we want to talk a little bit about our FFE disbursements. Some of you have requested a large sum of money for FFE. We're excited that you have a need there, and that we'll be able to fill that need. But there are a lot of requirements around what we need in order to verify those purchases and in turn reimburse you that funding. So a few reminders here. When you're filling out your requisition form, essentially your request for the funding, please attach a voided check. We want to make sure that we're sending your funding to the right checking account. And the way that we do that and verify it is by the voided check. If you are going to be out of town, and this part is actually true for both contractor payments as well as FFE disbursements. If you were going to be out of town or you're going to be unavailable and you know any of these requests or payments are in progress, please make accommodations for someone else to be able to sign the requisition forms and keep the process moving. I have said this before, and I'll say it again. Imagine if you cared for a child in your program and parents weren't paying tuition. You would only be able to tolerate that a certain amount of time. So if we're not paying contractors for work that they've already completed, I sort of equate it in the same way. And we want to show them respect for the work that they have done for us. So do what you can to put some backups in place if you're going to be available to make sure that those payments are moving through the process without any unnecessary delays. Your FFE receipts or invoices have to show the full amount that you paid. Photos have to show items unboxed and in the facility, sort of in place where you're going to be using them. So, you know, ideally, if you've gotten a bunch of fine motor materials for your classroom, the photo that you're sending to us shows those items on the shelf in the fine motor area or the math area, or books are on the bookshelf. That just helps move the process much faster. If you are one of the providers who have a large FFE amount, you do not have to send all of those requests in at once. We also know you're paying out of pocket, and that isn't always very easy for folks to front large amounts of money in that way. So you can send in smaller payments. Try to keep it, you know, a couple $1,000s at a time in order for it not to make too much extra work for everyone involved. But that does make it easier for us to sort of process, look at the photos, ensure everything's eligible, and move things much more quickly, as opposed to a very large order all at once. And if you are not sure if an item is eligible before you purchase, please contact your GPS. We want to make sure that you are using the funding to meet your needs, but are also meeting our eligibility requirements. And we would hate to tell a grantee that something is ineligible after they've already purchased it. So when in doubt, call your GPS, find out what the deal is. Okay. So what's next? This webinar will be posted, as Jasmine explained at the beginning, for you to go back to for future reference. We're also going to make sure that anyone who is unable to attend one of the 2 sessions has access to it, so that everyone has the same information. As I mentioned, we're also going to be compiling a grantee FAQ, which we believe is going to be incredibly helpful for you all. And all the wonderful questions that you've put into the chat will help us develop the content that'll go in there. And again, utilize your GPS as a resource. Ask questions. Tara mentioned, you know, that sometimes they're hard to get in touch with. They're managing a huge caseload, but we have an incredible team who will answer your questions as quickly as we can. And we really appreciate everyone's time today. Hopefully you found this informative and helpful. And just know that we're sort of here for you, alongside you, to navigate your way through this process. And I can't wait to keep coming out and seeing more and more finished projects, and see the impact that it's having on the providers and kids across New Jersey. So thank you so much for your time, and have a wonderful day.